state tests that measure proficiency in English language arts and math in grades 3 through 8. The State Education Department's report from the spring 2018 round of tests for students in grade 3-8 found that overall, 23% of our students were at or above grade level in English language arts and 17% were at or above grade level in mathematics. This is an increase of 4% in ELA and 2% in math from last year. Grades 3, 4, and 5 ELA scores improved at every school. 6th and 7th grade ELA increased as well, with 6th graders at Albany, School of Humanities, Eagle Point, and Thomas O'Brien making double-digit gains. In addition, Montessori Magnet School exceeded state proficiency standards for grades 3 through 5, and New Scotland Elementary School exceeded the standards for grades 3 and 4, and Eagle Point exceeded the standards for grade 3. Grade 7 ELA proficiency rose from 17% to 19%. Unfortunately, we saw a slight decrease in grades 8 ELA proficiency from 28% to 23%. In math, overall proficiency increased 3% from last year. Grade 6 saw an overall increase of 3% in mathematics with double-digit gains at Ash and Eagle Point. Grade 7 math scores saw a 1% decrease overall, and grade 8 math increased from 15% to 17%. We know that the achievement gap is still very much a factor in our district. We are committed to having a laser focus on closing that achievement gap among our students of color, students with disabilities, and our economically disadvantaged students. We are seeking the fruit of the collaborative efforts of our teachers' work to deliver quality instruction, use data to drive instructional decisions, implement high cognitive demand strategies, and increase student engagement. We know this work cannot be done without the dedication of our support staff and the leaders of our administrative teams. In addition, we acknowledge the increased participation and partnership with our family and community members. We commend the collective work and responsibility as we continue to press forward and increase the proficiency levels of all of our students. On October 23rd, Delaware Community School Principal Dr. Kenneth Lane presented at a national conference in Dallas on exactly how he and the members of Delaware have been building leadership teams, discussing their collective actions, and creating positive shifts in their school's atmosphere, which directly supports and increases student success. Excuse me. We held our final of the 4 community meetings for the board's middle school configuration proposals last week. We have received feedback, which has been shared among board members and staff. The feedback will be considered when making decisions regarding the middle school configuration. This discussion will be continued tonight at a later time in the board meeting. Wednesday was the deadline for people to respond to a district survey seeking input from families and staff and community members about updates to our 5-year facilities plan. We received about 80 responses that will be considered as the district examines and plans for upgrades to district buildings and grounds. The boys' modified 7th and 8th grade soccer team finished the season strong, winning 2 of their final 3 games of the season. Highlights include a come-from-behind 5-4 win at home over CBA on October 24th and a thrilling 2-1 double overtime win on October 26th at Bethlehem, where the Myers 8th grader, Tushami Gafasa, netted both goals for the Falcons. On a lighter note, 3 CSDA elementary schools, Arbor Hill, Eagle Point, and Montessori, competed in the fall Just Run meet on Monday. One race, 4th grade girls, deserves a special recognition, not only because it was an Albany sweep, but also because the 2nd place finisher, an Arbor Hill student, lost her shoe early in the race and completed the course with only 1 sneaker and still managed to earn a medal. Wow. Let's give her a round of applause. Just a reminder, there is no school on Tuesday as we will hold a district-wide professional development day. Our central registration office will be closed that day as well, so that those employees can attend trainings too. Tuesday is also Election Day, and schools that serve as polling places will be open for voting. Those schools are Abrooken Career and Technical Center, Albany School of Humanities, Montessori Magnet School, New Scotland Elementary School, and Thomas O'Brien School of Science and Technology. Please don't forget to vote. If you're not sure where you need to go, please call the Albany County Board of Elections at 518-487-5060. At this time, I'd like to turn the time over to Principal Leslie Buff to share the great things that are happening here at North Albany Academy. She has a very special guest with her this evening, Mr. Makai Holmes, who is an outstanding student that I've had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know over the past years.
Good evening. Welcome to North Albany Academy. So as Ms. Adams said, I have Makai with me. Oh, yay. And Marvian's here because I was going to have to wing it with Makai, and Marvian's here.
Okay.
So Marvian's going to take my seat.
Just for the benefit of the group, this is Marvian Bowman, and he will also join us to talk about North Albany. So welcome and thank you.
So I'm sure some of you might be familiar with Marvian and Makai. They are avid ambassadors. So I don't want you to think I only have 2 students that can speak about North Albany Academy, but this is actually their job. That's what they applied to do. Avid Ambassador was created to build the capacity of our students with utilizing their public speaking skills, and our students have to apply an interview, and they applied and interviewed last year and decided that they liked the job so much that they chose to apply and interview for the same job again. So they are our leaders in the school, and they're here to talk to you a little bit about North Albany Academy before I present.
Good evening. This is my friend Marvian Bowman.
This is my friend Makai Holmes. We are both in the 5th grade here at North Albany Academy, and we are avid ambassadors. Makai, what is your favorite subject and why?
I like math because it's super challenging. How about you, Marvian?
My favorite subject is PE because I like to play with all my friends.
What do you like best about North Albany Academy?
I like the teachers the best because they are always giving us second chances.
I like the opportunities that I've had here, like getting to speak in front of large crowds. Is there anything else that you like about North Albany Academy, Marvian?
I really like the teachers because they are always being nice to me.
I like learning about growth mindset and always persevering.
Thank you for coming to North Albany Academy and hearing about our great school.
I'm very glad I did not have to wing that. I don't know if I could have answered all those questions on the spot. But welcome to North Albany Academy. Thank you again for allowing me to present to you. I'm used to a clicker, so sorry, I have to get used to the mouse. North Albany's mission has remained the same for the last couple of years. Again, we're just focusing on that it's never too early to build those success skills within our students to prepare them for college and careers. So you'll see in the upcoming slides how our mission really drives the work that we're doing here at North Albany Academy. This year, we've had a slight change in our demographics. We've had a decrease in enrollment. We're down approximately 30 students from last year. This did cause us to have to collapse a kindergarten class, so we're only 1 deep in kindergarten this year instead of 2. We did have the nice addition of the kindergarten special ed class this year, and I know I'm not supposed to have favorite classes, but they are definitely a bright spot in my day. If not everybody's in the building, they've been a really nice addition, so we love having Miss Simon's class in our school. The diversity of our students has remained fairly consistent. We've had a slight increase in the number of ENL students. Last year, we were at approximately 13%. This year, we're at approximately 16%. Again, I attribute that to our connection with the Albany International Center. We work really hard, and I partner with Ms. Stead to keep families together, and that's been a really nice partnership and continues to be so. Although it's only 16% that's building wide, we do keep our L's in 1 grade level class, so that does leave our population in L's at that class at a significantly higher percentage. Some of our classes are approximately 45% Ls. We keep them together, one, because it helps them learn, and also it allows us to be strategic in terms of our ENL teachers and being able to push into the classroom and provide more support instead of being divided amongst the whole building. Our special ed population has remained fairly consistent as well. Last year we were at 20%. This year we're just down 1% to 19. That is, again, building-wide, but we do carry a high percentage of special ed students in our testing grades. Fourth grade, building-wide, is 25%, and fifth grade, I have 43% of my entire fifth grade being special ed. So I just point that out because that does affect us when it comes time for New York State testing. Staffing has also remained fairly consistent over the last couple of years. This year, we did just lose one reading teacher due to our low enrollment. So we're down 2 reading teachers instead of the 3. But we do have the one full-time RTI literacy coach position, and she serves 0.5 reading and then 0.5 coaching. And because we collapsed that kindergarten class, it allows her not only to support the kindergarten with push and support, but we were able to maneuver her schedule so she can also provide more support in my second grade, and then also be out in the building providing embedded either coaching or professional development for the teachers. As always, I do like to showcase or point out some accomplishments of the staff. So we are super excited this year that the AVID program manager nominated Liz Keller, my 4th grade teacher, to be trained as a summer institute trainer. So we're hoping that she does get selected for that. And then we were chosen again to be an AVID showcase school. So we'll be a showcase school in February of 2019. I mentioned to Karen before the board meeting that I'm used to presenting to you in April, and I always have an abundance of information as where we are because we're closing out our SEP and moving into the next one. And so I'm on the other side of it this year where we're kind of in the beginning stages of a lot of our work. So that might be to your benefit because I know I talk a lot, and so I won't have so much to say. But this year, Tenet 2, as you know, focuses on building leadership, and something that the district has really pushed is that's not just the building administrator, but also empowering the administrators to empower teachers to be teacher leaders. So this year, each of the building leadership team members is assigned a tenet, and they're in charge of working with committees and other stakeholders of the other tenets to ensure that that work's being done. They come back to BLT and report on progress, and that allows us to make any changes or modifications to the activities that we have planned in our SEP. And so far, that's been going very well. Tenet 3 focuses around curriculum development and support. This year, we surveyed our teachers to really identify areas of need that they felt they needed professional development on. So we're providing targeted professional development on things that they want to learn about. And then we're teaching them through AVID teaching strategies. This year, you'll see that there's a building focus on writing. It became very apparent that that's something that our students need to work on, and it's also support that our teachers need to implement more writing into the content areas. So all of our teachers will be formally data teaming around writing. Last year, when I reported to you, we only had 3 grade levels that were formally data teaming. This year, all of our grade levels are formally data teaming. Kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 5th grade have the support of the data teaming coach. And you know I always like to give shout outs to Carrie Barrington, is the district data coach, and she is phenomenal and has been supporting those teachers in that work. And then grades 3 and 4 have the support of their instructional coach. I've also rearranged my schedule, so on Wednesdays, or I rearranged the building schedule so this occurs on Wednesdays, so I can clear my schedule, and I, on Wednesday, am out in the building participating in all these data teaming meetings, so I can be a part of that work as well. Oh, did I click way too far? Yes. Tenet 4 is married to Tenet 3 with teacher practices and decisions. And so it became very apparent to us in our DTSD review and also reviewing our New York State data that our students struggle significantly with writing, as I mentioned. And so when BLT reviewed our some of the New York State released questions, we noticed that our students were getting standards right on the multiple choice, but they weren't on the constructed response. So we really wanted to capitalize on the fact that we know that our students have this knowledge, but they're just struggling with putting their thoughts down on paper. So that's why our focus is really on building the capacity of writing. You'll see in all of our classrooms, the expectation is that our students, whether it's in math class, because we're departmentalized in 3, 4, 5, or in ELA, that our students are really working on those constructed response questions. So that's a bulk of the work that we're doing this year around Tenet 4. Tenet 5, if you recall last year, I talked about that we had some significant barriers with this work, supporting our students' social, emotional, developmental needs. And so at the end of last year, I talked a lot about a reboot, and we've continued that this year with a reboot of PBIS and Tier 2, Tier 3. So what that looks like in the building is we've added more teachers or stakeholders to our PBIS team to increase staff buy-in and staff consistency. We know that our students need that consistency and structure, and if different staff members are handling situations in different ways, then the students don't know how to behave. So really increasing that consistency. We edited our PBIS handbook to provide more clarity to the teachers so they weren't so confused around the expectations for them. We added monitors to our RTI Tier 2, Tier 3 meetings. So for the first 30 minutes, all of the building monitors come into that meeting and are able to provide their input and be part of the plans that we're creating. We know that our monitors are vital to our students' success in the building. We also trained our monitors to provide more push-in support instead of pull-out. In the past, a student would be sent out to the monitor to walk the hallway and calm down, or they were kind of like an escort service to Mr. Griffin's office where they would see Mr. Griffin. And we're trying to utilize them in a different way, where if a student's struggling, to them to go into the classroom and work with the child so they're actually in the classroom. Unfortunately, a lot of our struggling students learn very quickly that it's easier to get out, and then they like being out. So we're saying you have to be in, and so we're pushing the monitors in with them. And then something else we're doing is I'm requiring my RTI Tier 2, Tier 3 team to meet monthly with each grade level teacher or grade level team to review students' behavior progress, and I'm also a part of that meeting as well. Tenet 6 focuses around parent and family engagement. In the past, I've talked to you about how we have really strived to increase family engagement building-wide, requiring each of my teachers to have individual parent events, so parents are coming into the classrooms and seeing what's happening in the classroom. That work has not stopped. We're still doing that. But this year, we're really focusing on engaging our families of our struggling students. And that goes back to Tenet 4 and really getting the RTI Tier 2, Tier 3 team to identify the students that are struggling, transitioning into school, and working with those parents from the get-go. So we're really working on making those connections and building those bridges for some of our families that can often feel disenfranchised. A lot of times our students that are struggling, we're making significant number of phone calls home, we're interrupting their workday, and that causes frustration, and we're really trying to minimize that by getting parents in the beginning, allowing them to be a part of student plans, talking about what they think their child needs and how we can better help them for their child to be successful. So at the beginning of the year, we identified about 10 students that we knew were struggling significantly with adjusting back to school, and we've met with all of those families, if not once but twice so far this school year, involving them in their child's plans. You know you can't sit here without me talking a little bit about AVID, but I don't have much to say. It's still the beginning of the school year. But something that I don't think I've talked to you about before is that we really try to engage our families through AVID family workshops. So our goal is always to have at least 3, if not 4, family workshops where we're having our families come in and talk to them about AVID and what AVID is in the building. So we were able to have 1 family workshop so far this year. It was geared towards our littlest students, our 1st and 2nd graders, and we had an amazing turnout. My 1st grade teacher said she only had 2 parents not in attendance, which was awesome. And it's really focusing on a particular skill we're trying to build with our students and how our families can support that at home. So this workshop was about how to utilize the binder and the agenda. We know that we teach the binder as not only an organizational tool, but also a studies tool as well. So we talked to our parents about that. And then our agenda, not only keeping our students organized, but goal setting. We require even our littlest students to learn about setting goals, so they start to, when they achieve that goal, build that confidence and see that little goals amount to bigger goals. So we work with that with them, and starting in 1st grade, and that was what our family workshop was about. And then I'm constantly pushing my teachers to create that college and career going mindset within our students. And this year I've set some high expectations for my teachers in grades 3, 4, and 5. They are required to have a minimum or plan a minimum of 3 college campus visits for our students and have numerous career speakers come into the classroom. So you can see that this is just November and December. We have several career speakers coming in to speak to our students. We have 2 college visit plans, 2 college visits planned, and then also continue our partnership with Junior Achievement. They'll be coming in November doing their JA ×2 program with our students. And that is it. Short and sweet this year for North Albany Academy. Thank you again for allowing me to share a little bit about the school.
That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Buff and Mrs. Adams. So now is the time in our meeting that we set aside to hear from district residents, parents, students, and other members of the public. We very much welcome community input about the decisions we're making. In addition to accepting such comments during public comment, we also accept comments by email, phone, and postal mail. While you're making your remarks, we ask you to keep in mind that by law, information about individual students and specific district staff can't be shared. Every student and every staff member deserves to know that concerns about them will not be aired in public. Also, we ask that you keep in mind that public comment is not the best place to first alert the district to a concern you have. Please share your concerns first with relevant staff, such as the teacher or principal. If you feel the concern is not addressed adequately, you may appeal to that person's supervisor up the chain of command, if necessary, to the superintendent. Decisions made by the superintendent may be appealed to the board. Finally, please note that the board generally does not respond during public comment period. If you need a response, please consider reaching out to us by email, phone, or postal mail. When I recognize you, please state your name and your city of residence. We ask you to restrict your statements to a maximum of 3 minutes. You will be given a 1-minute notice and a 10-second notice, and I'll notify you if your time has expired. And today we have Brenda Perkins. Brandy Perkins? I'm sorry, I can't read the writing. Hi. Did you want to speak tonight? Thank you very much. Well, that concludes our public comment period. Excellent. Okay, so now we move on to the next section of the agenda, which is the part of our meeting we call routine consent. During this part of the meeting, we approve routine matters for the district. That usually includes things like contracts, field trips, hiring of personnel, and other those similar matters. Thank you, Boaz, very much. We really appreciate your being here tonight. Voting on these things as a group with no discussion allows us to use our meeting time more efficiently. Each Board of Education member has the option to set aside any routine consent item in order to require discussion and a separate vote on that item. So with that introduction, I will now entertain a motion to adopt the routine consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Ms. Smith, and a second, Dr. Chatour. Are there any set-asides? Ms. Roach.
Yes, I would, oops,
I'm sorry. what was that?
actually, no, let's say no set-asides, sorry.
No set-asides.
Thanks.
Okay, we're moving for efficiency today. So with no set-asides, are all in favor of adopting the routine consent agenda? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. We move so fast now, I got to find out where I am on the agenda. I lost track of myself.
Madam President,
Mrs. Adams.
we would like to, at this time, acknowledge that we have 2 assistant principals that have just been appointed, and we would have Miss Allison Brody, who will be the assistant principal at Myers Middle School. Please stand. And we also have Miss April Stokes, who is going to be the assistant principal at Edmund J. O'Neill. So welcome and congratulations.
Thank you very much for being here tonight, and welcome to your new positions. So that brings us to an action on the Albany High School new courses. It is our normal practice that all items are discussed at one board meeting and acted on in the next. That gives the community a chance to review the material, which is all online. We will have an opportunity for discussion if necessary, but we did have a pretty thorough discussion of these courses 2 weeks ago. So I am looking for a motion to adopt the Albany High School new courses as displayed on board docs. Ms. Roach, second by Ms. Wilson. Is there any discussion? All in favor of adopting the new courses as we discussed last week? That is unanimous. We are going to make record time here. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Chatour as we reach the policy section of our agenda.
Madam President, members of the board, what we are doing today is we have 4 policy items that are action items. These were all discussed at the last board meeting. So just to remind you, the action items are policy 1900, which is parental involvement, action item 6256, which is fund balance in accordance with GASB, action item 6900, disposal of district property, and action item 9270, which was a new policy that we talked about last time on preliminary appointments. Any questions? May I make a motion to approve all of them?
So that's a motion by Dr. Chor. Who would like to second? Ms. Smith, is there any discussion? I'm just going to draw out, like I did last time, that 9270 preliminary appointments is a new, hopefully improved model for our district of being able to get staff members in the building halls and in the building classrooms more quickly, to allow central office to put people in those positions before, as a preliminary mission, in a preliminary way before the board formally appoints. That should allow people to get in the classroom as much as 2 weeks earlier than they have in the past. And so we're very much looking forward to seeing our classrooms staffed and our halls staffed quickly. Any other discussion? All in favor of adoption of the 4 policies? That is unanimous. And that brings us to the middle school configuration topic. And I believe we have a presentation, Mr. Hogan? Oh, and Mr. Peckham is there in the back. Welcome, Mr. Peckham. We're happy to see you here.
Okay, our topic is a middle school configuration. As you're aware, there's been 2 community committees that have been meeting approximately over 3 years. Most recently, we held a couple community forums in May or June, and then recently, just last month, we held 4 additional community meetings. So, this has been discussed at numerous board meetings as well, so at least to say that the board is pretty familiar with this material. So what's new here? The piece that we added tonight is the valuable input that we've received from the community over the most recent 4 meetings. So that is something new. So therefore, I'll kind of give a quick overview here, and then turn it over for discussion. So essentially, we're looking at 2 options. One is turning this school, North Albany, into a 500-seat middle school, and the other is turning North Albany into a 650-seat middle school. I'll talk a little bit more detail on those 2 different options as we proceed. So what did we learn from the community, and what were their concerns? So I tried to summarize them here. In terms of the North Albany Academy site itself, there was interest in what impact the construction would have on the area when that occurred. Fortunately, we have a great deal of experience in construction. As you know, over the last 15 years, we've probably done 15, 17 buildings. So we do everything we can to minimize the disruption in the community, even taking into account, like at Albany High School, traffic, times and deliveries, et cetera, of construction vehicles. There were questions about the YMCA space attached to this building. Essentially, the district would try to, we already have a lease and have rights to the gym and the pool during certain times of the day. We would try, and we're having conversations with them to get more access and more time. There's limited green space here, and that's a challenge for every urban district, including ours. The neighborhood safety was an issue that was raised and discussed. And then the next item, equity and feeder patterns to populate the new middle school. I think that was discussed at the topic of equity. You're going to see it. It also occurred in discussions of Arbor Hill when the students, elementary students here, would move to Arbor Hill. They had the same concerns about equity with that school compared to other middle schools. At the middle school level here, they just wanted to make sure there was equity with the feeder patterns versus our other middle schools as well. Some of the site issues at Arbor Hill, in addition to equity, was the space availability that we have there and the size it would be compared to others. It looks like as of the October numbers, there would be about 655 students. That includes 6 pre-Ks. We do have flexibility of where we locate pre-Ks. Ash, for example, has currently 555 students. Giffen has 571. New Scotland Elementary is a little bit smaller at 502. So it would be a little larger than Ash and Giffen, but again, enrollment and feeder patterns also determine things over time as well. And there is, Arbor Hill is one of the largest buildings that we own. There's a lot of space in that building that isn't even developed, so there's a lot of potential there to add space. The issue of class sizes, there would be no assumptions of changing of class sizes by any configurations we do. We have guidelines for different grade levels of target class sizes. They would continue the way they are today. In terms of adequate student supports at Arbor Hill, with the infusion of additional students, the community just wanted to make sure there was additional complementary support services for the higher student population. Transportation, again, also was one of the most talked about issues. It's a district-wide concern. I know the policy committee and our board has talked about it numerous times over the last year. And this related to, the distance of walking. The 1.5 miles is the threshold that at that point you receive bus eligibility. We are working and have been working and will continue to lobby and look at any other ways we can do to provide additional transportation. It's complex, there's a lot of issues with that, but we're actually going to try a couple different lobbying approaches, different techniques, either one of which would help us. And then the safety of the North Albany Elementary students going to Arbor Hill. There was just questions about the enrollment study. Essentially, we hire a professional demographic study firm. That's all they do. It's a real professional specialty. They actually did projections in 2015. They just updated them in April 2018. There were some changes, but essentially, it wasn't the district just kind of guessing what enrollment would be. We had a real professional studies done twice. There's a question about the timings of moving students into the new configurations. The elementary school students would move first out of this building to Arbor Hill in the fall of 2022, and then in the fall of 2023, this would be opened as a full middle school. We have to move the elementary students out first. That gives us more room for construction. There were questions about the Albany International Program and just general discussions. What if it was O'Neill? What would that look like? What if it was at a Brooklyn? And then just to summarize overall, there were frequent conversations about equity, feeder patterns, and transportation. Overall, it seemed like the community members we spoke with were supportive of the 650 student middle school and equally supportive as keeping Arbor Hill Elementary School as an elementary school. Given all the things they looked at and we explained and presented, it seemed to occur to most people what we were looking at seemed to make the most sense in terms of a 650 student middle school here at North Albany. These are just the enrollment projections. And we've looked at these for some time, but generally we need more middle school seats. There's two things going on. We want to remove the 6th grades as a program change out of the remaining, I think it's 4 elementary schools, into a 6-8 true middle school setting. And at the same time, we've had growing enrollment. So those two things combined are requiring us to increase our capacity for middle school seats. These are the two primary areas that we were looking at, if you just look at the middle column, the 500-seat North Albany, would assume North Albany is a 500-seat middle school with Hackett and Myers each at 650, and O'Neill would either be a 500-seat or 350-seat school. That assumes we would have 4 middle schools in operation. If you look to the right, the 650-seat North Albany option, it's going to be close, and we're going to actually do another study in 2 years to make sure that would still give us space, but the 650-seat option we do have options that can allow us to expand. So one advantage of that is that we potentially could run with 3 650 middle schools. If we could do that, that would be a lesser expensive option, and ongoing operational cost would be less as well because it's less expensive to run 3 schools than 4. The construction cost, you pretty much would be locked in at a 500-seat North Albany option to 30 to 31 million because we'd have to do 3.65 million of construction at Harriet Gibbons or Brooklyn on that proposal. The 650-seat option, we may very well, if we can keep it to 3 schools at 650, we would probably keep it in the range of 27 to $28.5 million. If we can do that, it would be less expensive. If we have to go into a 4th middle school at O'Neill, depending on how it goes, it would be 30 to 32 million. So it potentially could be $1 million more if we have to increase space later on the 650-seat option. But again, you're going to have less operational cost. Actually, I misspoke. In that case, you'd be running 4 middle schools under both scenarios. But I guess the biggest advantage to the 650-seat North Albany is if we don't have to go into a 4th school, you've saved a lot of money. Here's just a quick summary, a chart. I'm not going to read all of this, but essentially under the 2 options, you have more capacity under the 650-seat option as a middle school. Under the 650-seat middle school at NA, you have the possibility of being able to run with 3 middle schools instead of 4. Under the other option, you don't have that even as a possibility. The construction cost can be less if we run with 3 schools. If we have to go for 4, they're going to be similar or a little more initially. The operating cost implications, again, it'll depend if we can stay within the 3 schools. We also, there's a lot more capacity long-term with the 3 schools because we have other options. Other considerations is just that the 650-seat option does give us flexibility. If we do need to create more seats, we already have the O'Neill building. So we could put a 350 school or 500 student school in there if we had to. So this I already briefly discussed in terms of the cost. This is the timeline. We would be looking at a May 2019 referendum. We talked about the elementary school occupancy into Arbor Hill would be in 2022 in the fall, and this middle school would open in 2023. Here's just a little bit more detail in terms of what would be occurring at each building, Arbor Hill versus North Albany. The biggest thing there is the occupancy dates. They're a year sooner for Arbor Hill. And then in terms of next steps, the board will have a discussion this evening. And if they do pass a resolution on staff pursuing an option instead of 2, that would essentially direct staff to focus on one path going forward. And Mr. Peckham will speak later on about there's a lot of things that need to occur between now and even February to line us up for a May vote, because in February, early March, the board would need a definitive resolution with cost and referendum language. So with that, I will turn it back to the president.
So, Bill, you referenced Mr. Peckham talking a little bit about what needs to be done. Did you want to do that now, or do you want to take questions and
Sure.
then do that? Which is easier for you? We'll do that.
As far as the overall process that we go through from conception through finalizing a project, there's different steps along the way. So far, we've produced information and documents relative to a feasibility study. That's more broad brush, looking at what's possible across a whole number of different sites. Between now and when the board adopts a resolution and go to vote, we want to take those plans and review them, fine-tune them, get more information in them so that Turner Construction, your construction manager, can provide confirmation of the budgets that have been established to date. Obviously, when you're looking at 7 different options, they can't provide the level of estimating they would do like they did for the high school pre-referendum to be able to confirm all the costs ahead of the vote. So we have to get it narrowed down and get them more information so that they can work on that. We also have always been just working in plans. When we're going to do the type of additions we're going to do to this building, we feel it's appropriate to at least have some visuals of what that's going to look like. So when you're doing your final discussions and being able to go to the voters with it, they can see more than plans. A lot of people can't really tell a project from a plan, but if you show them a 3-dimensional picture, they really can understand what's going on. Another critical piece that has to happen is the State Environmental Quality Review Act process that needs to be completed before you can pass a resolution. That's probably a 60-day process from when you give direction on what needs to be done, what the project in general is going to be. Our site consultant will prepare some evaluation forms that then get circulated to a number of interested agencies. They have, by legislation, they have 30 days to review that information and respond, and then the board will have to take some action after that. It's a shorter period of time than we had for the high school because it's a different level of seeker action, but that process still needs to be taking place. And then based on the estimates that Turner does, we need some time to be able to refine the scope or discuss things if the budgets are one way or the other from what we're expecting them to be.
Okay, colleagues, that sounds like we're now at the point of questions and discussion. So does anybody have a question or a comment that they wanted to share at this point? Members of the audience, we have talked about this project practically at every board meeting for many months. So if there's no further discussion, it's not because there hasn't been plenty of discussion to this point. This is a decision that we have taken extremely seriously and have looked at every single possible scenario and option in many different ways. So I don't want anyone to think that we're not just having a thorough discussion. Ms. Alexander-Mann.
I just wanted to put out there that it's a priority of the of the district and of the board to make sure that when it comes time to pull together a committee to discuss and determine feeder patterns, that's something that is in our discussions has been a priority, and also another priority is, as we said in the slide, ensuring that or working diligently to try to get some resolution around the transportation challenges.
Yes, thank you very much for drawing that out. That was, as many of you know, I was at all of the middle school configuration meetings, and the question of transportation, trying to find a way to, consistent with New York State law, provide transportation to our North Albany students who will have a longer walk is very high on our list of priorities. Vicki, did you have something?
Just a clarity, I think, for me. Am I understanding, if I'm looking at slide 8, that if we were to go down the 500-seat North Albany option, we'd have to stick to that plan. That would not give us an opportunity to do another demographic study. Am I reading that correctly? That would only really, we would only have time for that in the 600-seat option.
We could do the demographic study. What we couldn't do is decide at that point we needed a 650-seat school, because we'd have already been halfway down the architectural design. So while we could do it, we wouldn't have the flexibility to grow the school at that point. Anyone else? Oh, Ms. Roach.
I just kind of wanted to confirm something that may have been ambiguous in one of the slides, and it's on the slide page 6, where it talks about there's an item for possible new location for the Albany International Center. And I just kind of wanted to clarify that under either of these options, the Albany International Center would be moving. The difference is where it might move to, and that's still unknown.
Correct.
Thanks.
Any other points of clarification or questions or comments? Okay, then we do have a resolution which is on board docs, and I guess I will read it for purposes of having it in the audio record as well for people who are listening at home. Whereas it is the mission of the City School District of Albany to work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. And whereas to advance this mission, there is a need to move 6th grade classes from elementary schools to a middle school building or program. And whereas there is a need to address enrollment trends and projections that suggest that the district will enroll more middle school age students in the future. And whereas the board and district have evaluated options for educating the middle school population, and the board has performed due diligence, including engaging community members and stakeholders, and is prepared to make a determination with respect to the method and means of most effectively educating the district's middle school aged students during the years to come, it is hereby resolved that the board approves converting North Albany Academy to a 650-seat middle school, commonly referred to as either option E+, during presentations that have been made to the board and to the community. It is further resolved that the board grants the district administration the authority to complete administrative work to effectuate that option, consistent with the laws of New York State. So that is what we are voting on now. May I have a motion to pass the resolution? Ms. Wilson, and a second, Ms. Smith. All in favor? That is unanimous. Can we have an applause for a little period at the end of the middle school conversation? Thank you very much, Mr. Hogan and Mr. Peckham. So I think next we have a discussion on culturally responsive education.
Good evening, members of the board, Madam President, and members of the audience. We would like to begin our initial presentation to chart our course with regard to the work aligned with our vision of being a district of excellence with caring relationships and engaging learning experiences that provide equitable opportunities for all students to reach their potential. At the core of our vision is the concept of equity, and as a district, we have been addressing our equity work through our partnership with NYU and culturally responsive education. At the onset of this school year, considering the fundamental importance of this work, Ms. Sanders was assigned to target the district's work on embedding CRE practices in our daily work. There are 5 goals of this work that we will share with you this evening, beginning with professional development, developing an equity policy and procedures, school building and department equity teams, empowering our youth, and Human Resources and Community Engagement. At this time, I will turn the program over to Ms. Vibetta Sanders, who will walk you through the expectations and deliverables of her roles and responsibilities addressing culturally responsive education and equity.
Thank you, Superintendent Adams, and good evening, Board. Today I would like to share with you some of the work that we've been doing to create a sustainable culturally responsive education program as well as an equity policy. But before I begin, I'm a firm believer in you have to know from whence you came, you have to understand your history before you can move forward. So I'm going to share a little history about culturally responsive education in the district. I'm only going to share it, and I'm going to be honest, it's going to be from the year in which I became an employee of the City School District of Albany, although that history goes further. So the good news about this history is that when I came, there was some form of culturally responsive education, there was intermittent training, there was also a community support group for new employees of color. And that was really under the direction of Linda Jackson Chalmers and Dr. Eva Joseph. So we already have some history with doing this work, and somehow things change, and we begin to look at culturally responsive education as it relates to a mandate, a citation for disproportionality. So we kind of changed the direction in how we were looking at doing this work. Our entry point changed to a mandate, which means sometimes your outcomes will be a little different. We went from there to looking at the root cause analysis with NYU, and then we began to engage in CR, culturally responsive education training with NYU, starting with the administrators first. The next thing that happened is we then got hit with the Attorney General's assurance of discontinuance, again, all centered around disproportionality. We begin to say, well, how do we begin to sustain a CRE program? Because it seems like we're in this for the long haul, right? So either it's a mandate or it's something that we truly believe. I'd like to say that we're making the shift to this is something that we truly believe. Yes, a mandate may have accelerated our work, but it's something that we truly believe, and so we begin to create a team of of district employees that could actually deliver CRE trainings, and that's what we're doing now. We have a group of 7 people now, 3 primary co-facilitators with NYU, and we just brought on 4 more to be part of the co-facilitation team, which will they will become our CRE facilitators. We also started our Equity Policy Committee. We had our 2nd meeting yesterday. I want to thank Mrs. Smith, Board Member Smith, for being a part of that, and I also want to definitely thank Superintendent Adams for being a wonderful facilitator for that work. I think the sessions went really well, and I think what we are creating is, first of all, historic, and I think it really speaks to the heart and soul of who we are and what we believe. Last year, we did have some participation to kind of address the needs around equity. We did have some participation in recruitment fairs. I think we did 2 at some historically black colleges and we also have had a history of exposing our new teachers to some form of CRE work. So there have been some strands of it throughout our history as a district. The goal of this work is to begin to bring it all together, solidify it, and to make it something that's sustainable. So the first goal in terms of creating this sustainable program for CRE as well as equity is professional development. It all starts with us getting re-educated and really making that paradigm shift, because it's really what we're trying to do is we're trying to have people begin to make a paradigm shift in their attitudes and beliefs about the children they serve and the community that they serve. And they have to make that paradigm shift in order for them to afford our students that access and opportunity that they need to be successful. So right now, we've had 9 cohorts. We will have 9 cohorts by the end of the year. Cohort 1 was named Cohort 0. I don't know why that happened, but it did. But so technically, we're talking about Cohort 7, but they really are Cohort 8, and then we'll have Cohort 9 in June. That will train at least 60 people. The difference in this training is that prior to that, it was training for the purposes of going through an experience, and you decided what you would do with it afterwards. We're very intentional in our training now. They have homework they need to do. They have accountability teams, and they truly understand that their charge is to go back to the buildings and become part of a team that will support the work that the building needs to do. So we're not just taking people that may need to have a paradigm shift in a very jolting way. We're really looking at people who are already committed to this work to begin to go back to the buildings to do the work. The other charge that we're going to do, NYU is an absolutely amazing organization to work with. They're heavy into research. Their modules are massive. Our charge will be this summer is begin to look at their work and begin to own parts of it that fit our district. We cannot teach everything that NYU has in their modules, and we don't need to. So it will be the charge of the current co-facilitators to really work on kind of drilling down to the most important things that we want every City School District of Albany person to know and to believe, and that's what will be contained in the model. The next thing is looking at the equity part of policy, which I alluded to a little earlier. The 2 meetings that we had, which were really just very enjoyable moments. I took some photos, and just watching people in action. We had representation from all parts of our district and our community. We had parents, we had community members, we even had a parent who had an interpreter with her. And so it was really a nice representation of who we are as a district. So we've got to that point of where we have our language together, and we're just working on massaging some terms, and it has to go under review. We will also be doing an NYU survey. We do that once every 2 years. I think the last time we did it was in 2016. We're going to try and increase our numbers around that survey, because this survey will count as our baseline for everything that we do from here forward. So we'll have a survey. I'm hoping at least by December, mid-December, that survey will be done, and then we'll run it again next September, and that will be the measuring point. That's going to be pretty much our lead measure for a lot of the work that we're doing. We need to see some shifts in attitudes and beliefs. So the real meat and potatoes of this work is what happens at the department level as well as the building level. Prior to us engaging in this work, we really began to look at buildings. Being a building principal, one of the biggest challenges with that is that much of what I do is based on what the person that runs that department tells me to do. So I can position myself to begin to see things in a very equitable way, and I can begin to build equity in my system. But if the things that are coming to me by way of curriculum, by way of policies of a particular department are not equitable, we already have a conflict. So to use the term that we started out with in September, a convocation, this is an all-in plan. Every department will be responsible for identifying what their baseline is as it relates to equity, and they are going to be charged with the responsibility of looking at what do we need to do when we make decisions to ensure that it includes all children, and it is equitable for all children and all families. So we could have an equity policy, but not to get on the buses, but if we don't think about the whole notion of busing and how that impacts some of our families that have the most challenges, then all of the work that I'm doing to try and get kids into school is for naught if it falls apart at its transportation level. So there has to be this synergy around culturally responsive education as well as equity, and it is, I want to be clear, it is not just the responsibility of a building principal and a building, it's everybody's responsibility. So then we move on to there. I want you to see that This is an ongoing process. So we're going to start with these equity teams, these building equity teams, and these department equity teams by creating an action plan. And the action plan will be created based on an assessment that they do and analyzing their baseline data. We want them to monitor their progress, sustain and increase the knowledge that they've gained, because remember, this knowledge is ongoing. It's just not a one and done. You learn something, oh, I got it now. No. This is because we're talking about changing attitudes and beliefs. It's an ongoing process. We want them to begin to build their own infrastructure to support equity and culturally responsive education. And we want them to continue to evaluate the impact that they're having based on the changes that they made. Now, see, the cycle doesn't end. It keeps going. It keeps going. That once you've achieved one goal in that fashion, you're going to go on to the next one, and so on and so on. The piece that I like to talk about that I think is the most exciting piece, because for those of you who have heard me speak before, I always say that if I want something done really well and done right, I give it to kids. Kids have never, ever failed me. They've always reached to an extremely high level of whatever it is that we're trying to achieve, and sometimes they can achieve things far better than I can. They see things that I just simply don't see. So there's a segment of this work that's called youth empowerment. I think that this is extremely important because many of the students that we're not reaching can be reached through social justice means. And we're missing a wonderful opportunity to empower those youth that are otherwise disengaged because we're not speaking their language right now, through having a role in the direction of who we are and what we are and how we express ourselves. So I've already had a meeting with Ward and his team. There are some other people in the district that are interested in the youth empowerment. We were able to see some demonstration of youth empowerment at NYU, and that's what excited us about the possibilities of the roles that our students will play in ensuring that we are an equitable institution. And last but not least, it's human resources and community engagement. So one of the things that we're working on with Matt, is we need to increase our media presence. We just can't rely on the Times Union or OLAS. We have to look at some of those magazines that are tailored to diverse populations of professionals. Increase participation in recruitment fairs. Diversity, I'm looking at creating a diversity resource guide, but I would like to create that in collaboration with the City of Albany, because I think that we both have a common goal. I can remember coming to the City of Albany, and there were some things that I just simply could not find that spoke to my spirit and what I needed in order to survive. And I remember making friends and then being able to find those things. But if you're a person that's fresh out of college and you're looking for a new opportunity, you need to be able to see yourself in that location. If we create a diversity resource guide for those people, they can begin to see themselves in the City School District of Albany or in the City of Albany in general. So I think that that is something that's important for not just the City School District of Albany, it's important for the Capital District, and I'm hoping that we can inspire perhaps the Mayor's office to partner with us on that. The last thing we're looking at is diversity retention. How do we begin to keep these people, this workforce that we're trying to build, a workforce that looks similar to the students that we serve, and we understand the importance behind that. How do we begin to retain that group? And I have some ideas about how we can do that, and it would probably be very similar to what had been done when I came here. At no point during the time of that particular administration had I ever felt like I couldn't pick up a phone and talk to somebody about a challenge that I was having. And I think that makes a difference in terms of whether people continue to stay. They have to feel as though they have supplanted themselves in a location, and part of that is having a network of people. And so those are the things that we have planned. As I explained earlier, we're currently in the throes of establishing our equity policy. We've onboarded CRE people. We're continuing our training to train 60 people this year. We have recruitment fairs that are almost totally planned. I'll be meeting with the faculty and staff to establish those district equity teams as well as the building equity teams, connecting with community group, and also developing the district CRE module. Any questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Sanders.
Thank you.
We are very pleased to finally be seeing some motion in some of this work, which we've been talking about for a long, long time here at the City School District of Albany, so I appreciate that. Ms. Wilson, did you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for your presentation. It was excellent.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about it in more of like a holistic way about all of the goals, because I found this to be a pronounced, well-articulated framework rather than what happens often with words such as diversity or globalism. They tend to be like vocabulary words that we use as buzzwords. I found this to be really well-defined, so I appreciate that. Thank you, and it's excellent. Especially the portion that I read about the faculty and staff professional development, and the sentence I love most was the ongoing focus on CRE and equity training to ensure that it's woven through the fabric of our school culture and becomes standard operating procedure of how we educate our students and educate ourselves. I thought that was really profound in terms of a statement, and really reflects what you were getting to the heart of, is the needs for inclusion and transparency and accessibility at all the levels. So I really appreciated that. And another phrase that was mentioned a few times, intentionality, and I found that to be the term I would always use almost is intersectionality, and I feel like they're aligned also very much so. And goal 4, as far as it relates to youth, I've found that to have immense potential, because inclusion, I feel like that would really, the students would respond to that in terms of engagement and diversion opportunities. And 5, for the human resources and community engagement, I feel that we're doing, especially just with our practice or approach to middle school just now, there's so much transparency and so much outreach to the community that it really promotes their understanding of what we're doing, and thus they would want to collaborate with us. And final point, I'm sorry, is collaborating with the city is brilliant, because the city is almost at like a parallel level of their equity agenda, and I feel like we're like evolving and they're evolving, and that's just a brilliant idea.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a comment or question? Ms. Smith?
Ms. Wilson, that was fabulous. Again, I wanted to just applaud Superintendent, Principal Sanders for the work. Also, specifically having the opportunity to participate in the Equity Committee was really very important for me, and I know that almost every one of the board members wanted to be a part of that session or sessions, and I hope that I communicated that work each time to you. I think, again, I think that I just want to reiterate the importance of having pulled together the committee in the way that you did. I mean, it was a pleasure to have the unions represented. Ms. Flowers is here actually today. She was there. To have community organizations and parents. It was, I think, exactly what one would expect, but you did it. And I think that Ms. Adams, and Ms. Sanders, we very much tried to stay with you. You said, we're going to get this done. I'm going to keep you on track. And it was a little tough, I will say, for me, because I was like, I don't believe she's trying to do this in this shorter window. This is incredible, because it is a process, and processes are, you go through a lot to get there. But what we had to do was sort of let go a bit and trust you and let you guide us. The other thing for me personally was that, and this came up, you might hear us later talk about this School Boards Association conference that we all attended, but I went to a couple of CRE type presentations, and it was very easy to kind of really get sucked into that, because it was really specific. Oh, look at what they're doing in that building. Look what they're doing in that. And and I wanted to bring that back here. And it's hard because what I had to figure out how to do was step back and say, wait, what's my role as a board member? What is my role? How do we set policy? What is the governance level? And that's really hard because in many ways, you're more accustomed to seeing what happens on the ground. You know, that's how you know, okay, if that happens, we're gonna be successful. And the policy is a little more like up in here. And so it takes some work to kind of seat yourself appropriately and participate at the appropriate level. So I want to thank you for your patience, but more importantly, your guidance with helping all committee members do that. So I just wanted to kind of leave that there. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Ms. Roach?
What I wanted to say, I think in some respects echoed Ms. Smith's comments, because, you know, I approached, when I came to read this, I kind of approached this with trepidation and said, how much is she really going to have for us since we don't have an officially adopted equity policy yet? And yet what I saw was really incredibly detailed, and it was about process. It was about, this is how we're going to get done what we get done, and I loved the SMART goals, that they were very specific. In particular, just to pick out one example, some of your goals for HR, in terms of we're going to do this, we're going to go to at least 4, we're just going to go to at least 4 fairs that target minority employees. Just amazing, amazing what you did and how you put it together. I really liked how detailed it was and how it took. You really, as a former building leader, understand how all the parts fit together in the bureaucracy, and how everything has to be, you know, it's all like all the gears, so everything needs to be changed. You need to have that team in every part of the system in order to make it work, and I really appreciated that. Thank you so much for you've obviously put a ton of work into this, and thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lang?
I'm very excited to see this at policy, so I know that it will be a great, great conversation. My question is about the continuing of the CRE after you get through the cohorts. Kind of what is your vision to continue, because it can't be just a one-time, obviously, thing, and with time, we can't go fast enough, right? So we're already behind it. And second, you talked about infrastructure. So I wanted to know if you had a little bit of thought on the infrastructure. I know we don't have the policy, but if there were a few things that came out that really stuck through the conversations you've had the last 2 meetings.
Okay. So in terms of continuing, yes, you have to continue. Even people who do this work professionally have to continue. There's different things that are always coming. There's different things, there's different ways to look at how we connect with other people that may be different from us. So there's always something new. It is my hope that these facilitators, who are now co-facilitators with NYU's, but they will become full-fledged facilitators, will become support mechanisms for these departments and these buildings when they go to roll out their equity plan. So instead of a person saying, well, you know, I just learned how to really talk about microaggression, but I'm not feeling really comfortable with it. Can I have an opportunity to talk with you about the best way to roll it out? What if I run into a stumbling block? Because again, we are a country that we don't like to talk about race, right? We don't like to talk about challenges, and sometimes we all need some coaching to gather up the strength to have that conversation, because it is at the point of that conversation, it's when we begin to have those conversations that we begin to understand each other, all right? And we begin to understand, well, now I know that this is what I need to do. So that work will continue. We will continue when we create that training model. The hope is that every single new employee from here on out will have some training. It's just how we do business. And so that's why it will be really important for us to define what that would look like.
I'll address that as well. One of the things that we've been talking about with Mr. Petrin is when we have the orientation at the beginning of the year with all of our new employees, what is going to be that standard delivery for onboarding our employees, but then also embedded throughout our school year, what does that tiered, layered, embedded training look like? So that's where we're going to be looking at information from NYU. People who have done it for years, the year 5 doesn't look the same as year 1. So how do you layer it so that it stays fresh? You keep bringing it back through the equity lens, but people aren't sitting through the same training that they've done for 5 years. So there's a layering and a tiering that happens, and there's also, therein lies some of that differentiation, because some people will move ahead faster than others, some will have it, some may not. Then what do we do now to differentiate that particular training and keep it fresh? That'll be our work with NYU.
I just had one question, which is one of the things we've been doing for some number of years is the cohorts. And I would love to see maybe next time when you get a chance to come to us or sometime in mid-year to start getting some metrics in terms of what percentage of our staff have been through that process. Or if you determine as we work towards this that 100% of staff going through that particular training is not the goal, we're going to reestablish the goal. I would just like to be metricing that, because I feel like board, when we first approved that, I think we're in year 3 now, maybe 4 of doing that. We, I think, thought that was going to happen faster. I think we really all felt that we would be going pretty quickly towards a pretty large percentage of our faculty and staff going through that training. And we are very excited to see this feeling like we've got real thrust now behind what we're doing. It's wonderful. But to keep an eye on that metric would give us a sense of confidence that we are, in fact, making forward progress. And I want to add my personal second to what Ms. Wilson said and what Ms. Smith said about the policy. One of the first policies I ever became interested in accomplishing, and I was chair of the policy committee for 3.5 years, was an equity policy. And I started sharing that with my colleagues well over 3 years ago. And so to finally be at a place where there's buy-in from the district and the whole entity to actually see that policy be created feels extremely rewarding to me, because it's been something that we've talked about at the board level literally since the day I got on the board. So thank you, Mrs. Adams and Ms. Sanders. We are very much looking forward to seeing some of that come alive in our district. Does anyone else have anything else before we move on? Dr. Chatoor?
Great work.
Thank you.
Now, all I gotta say is, in my years in the U.S., I've heard a lot of people talk about equality and equity and all of those things, and it's been a lot of talk, not much action. What I've started seeing in our district is that we actually mean what we say, and we're trying to do and implement these things. And this is one example of this. The project at the high school, the whole MWE thing, that's another example of it. That's an exciting place to be in. The community is coming together. We all want to do it, and we are trying hard to get it done. Not easy,
No, not
but
easy.
making progress. So, thank you.
Ms. Alexander Mann?
Said something, I might as well say something. Ms. Saunders, this was fantastic, and for folks who are not of our tribe, the tribe of MSWs, action plans are really a way of kind of creating a vision and outlining how it's all going to happen. So that's fantastic, and I appreciate all the hard work that you put into the presentation and just the work. So thank you.
Can I just add one thing? So I don't stand alone in this work, okay? I think we are at this point of being able to sort of actualize a plan. It's because NYU pushed us last year and told us to present something. We're like, what? Present what? What are we going to present? And in the process of thinking about what we would share about our journey, we begin to see a plan. So I have to thank those people who came on to be those co-facilitators, Tom Giulio, Dave Amodio, Jerome Perkins. And I also have to thank our superintendent for really kind of pushing this agenda as well. I think that our intentions were there initially, but trying to find the action pieces in order to do it, we were having problems with that. We realized that just training people a one and done is not enough, that it has to be continuous. And I think we did our one and done, and so that's why we kind of sat in a spot for a little bit. But just the fact that we were allowed to do co-facilitation, and then we were pushed to do a training, and from that training, from that presentation at NYU, again, it became pretty obvious what our missteps were and what we needed to do in order to move this forward. So I don't stand alone here.
Ms. Smith.
I just also want to acknowledge that so often when we talk about equity or diversity, it's very easy to get focused just on one thing that's really important to you, like race, or for some it was class. And we had those discussions throughout the days, the work of the Equity Committee, but it was really wonderful everyone had to sort of speak their piece, but also acknowledge, I'm not just African American, I'm not just Latino, I'm not just gay, I'm not just female, but we want to have a society that embraces all of who we are, and we want that so desperately for our children. And so I think that really, really came through. And I also wanted to I hear you very clearly about the importance of making the connection to city, even county for that matter, because there are pockets of work out there. But I just don't want us to lose the momentum and the work that we have to do here, because it is so much work, so important work, that if we're successful on this front, I can imagine that the other stuff will happen.
Absolutely.
So while I applaud that desire and that goal, I don't want us to do that at the expense of losing the important work and focus that we have for our schools, for our children. So.
Any other last minute comments? If not, thank you very much. Mrs. Adams.
I have a final comment, and it's just with regard to All In for Albany. Our policy committee work was absolutely an example of that, and there's one person that could not be with us tonight, and I have to express a lot of gratitude to Dr. Cecily Wilson-Turner, who has really been instrumental in helping navigate through some of the past, what we deal with here in the present, as well as being able to foresee the future. And so I have to make sure that I acknowledge that member of our team because she is absolutely critical to this work as well. And so thank you, Ms. Sanders. Thank you, Dr. Wilson-Turner. Thank you to the board for being able to support this courageous work. And I do have to say thank you to Cabinet for all of the support that you give us behind the scenes to make all of these things happen. But I do want to say this, one of the things at the NYSBA conference that I don't know if you know this, but I'm going to take a little personal privilege right now and say I was probably the proudest superintendent at the whole conference simply because, number one, all 7 of you attended that conference. And from what I heard from other superintendents, that is something that is not usually the case, where an entire board takes the time out to come and learn and support their superintendent and their school district just to stay in that cycle of continuous improvement and learning. And so I want to say thank you for that. And this work is beginning, and it is going to be an uphill climb because there will be conversations and comments that are made that we may not agree with. There will be things that we will have to look at through an equity lens, and that is why the policy itself is a very courageous move for a board of trustees, a board of education to embark upon. And I personally applaud you for that courage and being willing to take a very public stand about where we are in terms of equity and what we believe. And so we are very excited to share the work with you from the committee so that you can hear from your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Mrs. Adams, I'm not sure who is presenting next. We are on to the cabinet redesign piece. Ms. Santarami.
Good evening. This is the final section of our I don't want to say reorganization, but just our realignment of roles and responsibilities throughout our cabinet and looking at the different divisions and what their roles are in the supervision. And so tonight we will hear from our communications and operations division, and Lisa Anjarami is going to fulfill that responsibility in the absence of Mr. Lesko. She is our assistant director, and so I'll turn the time over to her.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to recognize the folks on the team. We have Ron Lesko, as you all know, the Director of Communications and Operations, myself, Jake Plank, who is he is our creative, what is your title, Jake? I apologize. Thank you. Our creative content coordinator, and he does all our beautiful flyers and publications and does an amazing job. Abby Bleck, who had joined the communications department as a communications specialist, and in the short time she's been here, she's been amazing. Kathy Edmondson, who's our community engagement coordinator, who I know if you go anywhere in Albany, you are likely to see Kathy somewhere out there representing us. Fiona Thompson is our volunteer coordinator for the school district based out of Albany High. Denise Town is the director of transportation, and Corey Brown and Tyler Duncan round out the transportation office and keep that office going, and that's a very, very tough job, and I really have to hand it to them as well. In areas of responsibilities, the communications department is responsible for digital communications, meaning our website and Albany High's website, SNN, Facebook, and Twitter, which are pretty busy and which we use a lot. We're responsible for publications, both district-wide and school-specific. We work on the quarterly newsletter that's mailed to every household in the City School District of Albany, as well as quarterly, at minimum, newsletters for each of the schools and the Office of Early Childhood. We provide event-specific flyers, postcards, lottery applications. We work on big-ish projects like the Albany High School course book and the Code of Conduct book. In addition to the publications, we are responsible for media relations and crisis communications. We advise schools every day on the everyday kind of communications issues that might pop up. I had a principal call me today and ask me to help out with a letter having to do with a policy that he wanted to reinforce to families. So it's that kind of day-to-day stuff that crops up as well. We do photography and videography. All the photos you see in our publications, staff takes, and Jake has done all the amazing videos that you may have seen on Facebook. Swinging over to community engagement, I mentioned Kathy before. She connects the districts with people throughout the community on a variety of issues. Community engagement efforts include outreach and MWBE advocacy on district construction projects. It's important as the community engagement person, to be visible in the community at events and be an active participant in various community groups and committees, and Kathy does that. And Kathy also coordinates soup to nuts parent university meetings that take place most months during school at middle and elementary schools. The Communications and Operations Division is also responsible for volunteer recruitment and screening, government relations and advocacy on behalf of our schools and our school district, monitoring charter school enrollment and attrition, and transportation with the director managing and supervising the transportation for all students and managing relationships with our transportation partners. And I apologize for being a little light on some of those details, but they are out of my bailiwick.
So at this point, we will transition just if there are any questions with regard to communications and operations.
Ms. Wilson?
Not so much a question, but just want to extend a compliment that I really love the overall look and feel of the material that you put out. It's very crisp, and I think, in terms of like social media, I find that it tends to be very shareable. I see people sharing our things. So I just wanted to extend that.
I want to echo that. The comment I wanted to make is that the radical improvement in the quality of our productions over the last, say, 3 to 5 years. It's been really dramatic, and not only because of Mr. Jacob, but then there are other people who've had some effect on that. But it's very noticeable, and I get comments on it from members of the community fairly regularly about the quality of the pieces that are coming out now. Thank you very much.
So the last piece, this kind of wraps everything up. You'll see that new look of our organizational chart. And so you'll see it's in alignment with our organization, with our educational design. We're following that same format. And you can see all of our divisions are listed. And then at the bottom, we listed the different areas of supervision within the divisions. Any questions? This document is going to be put on the website so that it's available for our public. It also will become, now that we have finished all of the presentations with regard to the divisions, our leadership resource guide will be made public. So this will be a part of that resource guide, that leadership resource guide, with all of the different segments that you were able to see. I feel like Vanna now. All of the different segments that you're able to see within that leadership resource guide.
If I can just ask that someone put on their to-do list that it's part of our, there's a policy on organizational structure that links to that, and so that will need to be updated at some point too. Are there any questions? Ms. Smith? No. I'm totally, you're totally on point and I'm off. Thank you.
So as I'm look at this chart, one of the things that, and I don't know how useful it would be to do this for parents and community, but for me, I love to be able to go and there's a hyperlink onto an individual office or something. Is that something you're considering?
We were not considering that, but we can consider that. And we can put it in multiple locations, because if you go to the, I'll go back to this. When you look at our communications guide, all the way at the very, not this one, but the whole guide, the very first page where all of us are listed, those are hyperlinked already so that you can click direct, there we go. So like here, you can, these are active. So the very first, thank you, Ms. Sierra, I appreciate that. You can click directly on the office and it provides that information, but we can absolutely put it in both places.
Anyone else for this part of the presentation which had to do with the cabinet redesign before we move on to the next phase of this? All right, thank you very much. So I think in a related matter, the next topic is the discussion of the communications plan.
Yes, it is. And we do have a PowerPoint for that, and you have the comprehensive document that you can absolutely look to for more detail. Thank you very much. But Lisa's going to go ahead and walk us through the communication plan. I'll give a little brief introduction. This is a document that it is still in draft form. We will be working through it because there are components that we have to work through a little bit more in detail as we go through this upcoming year. But what you have in front of you, the lengthy document as well as the PowerPoint that we're going to share, is the structure of what that communication plan will look like, what the expectations are, not only for departments, but also for our buildings, and then the expectations of communications from our communications and operations division. So it's very comprehensive, and like I said, there are more details that will be forthcoming as we go through the year. We do know that the website will be redesigned, so that information will have to be revised as well. But we will be moving through this document as a working document this year, but it puts us, it gives us that infrastructure and provides that direction as to where we're headed. And of course, input from our board is more than welcome with regard to making it more user-friendly, if that is the case. And then of course, input from our stakeholders as we put it out then what type of input do we get from those who are actually using it? So at this time, I'll turn it back over to Lisa.
Thank you. If you would move the slide. Thank you. I think you're all pretty well versed with our vision, mission, and goals. Our mission is to work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. And communication is really key to that mission and a critical part of our mission, vision, and goals. I'm going to start by saying that effective two-way communication is very important to supporting the vision, mission, and goals of the district. Try and think of this communication document as a blueprint for what the communications office does, but also a communications approach for everybody who works for the school district, whether we're communicating with each other internally or with students, families, businesses, community partners, and so forth. And having said that, there's really two guideposts in the plan. First, communication, whoops, go back one. Yeah, here we go. Communication needs to be clear, consistent, timely, transparent. We have a diverse community, and it's really important to remember to convey information clearly in a way that can be understood by a wide range of people, not just those of us sitting in this room. We also need to get out information in a timely manner when it's relevant, and it has to be honest. Transparency is completely key, because establishing trust and confidence among our colleagues and the people in our community is going to be the way that we are going to make headroads in improving student achievement. Second, as I said before, communication is a two-way street. We have to make the effort to listen to people and take their questions and concerns seriously. And again, this is how we're going to build trust. And again, this applies not just to the communications office, but to all of us in the district. Next slide. Thanks. Now let's talk about our goals for this year. Our team's already achieved some of the goals. We realigned the staff in the communications office, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the next slide. And we're continuing to work with schools to help them develop clear, culturally relevant communications with their families. In the works, as Superintendent Adams mentioned, is a new district website, which Jake is working on, and a new TV show that Abby will be working on. Our office is teaming up with Kent Baker's people to develop and launch the website. The first part we're looking to do soon. We're also looking, as I said, to start a monthly TV show that can be broadcast on public access TV, and eventually, when we get a new website, on our website. We are always seeking out new ways to engage with our community, whether that's getting their feedback on a given issue or reaching out to people that don't have access to traditional ways of communicating. We also want to get better at what we do, so we are pursuing professional development opportunities. As all of you know, because you were at the meeting in New York City, the communications part of the office went to the School Boards Association conference, and we came back with a lot of great ideas that we're looking forward to putting in place. Okay, the structure. We realigned the communications and community relations departments this year, and the change allows us to better meet our growing needs in schools and departments, and also to engage families and community members in and outside school. The new structure has more defined roles and responsibilities. Abby Bleck and I now are dividing up the schools, so we're each responsible for half of the schools. You can see who's doing one on pages 7 and 8 in the communications plan. We write and take photos of what's going on in the schools. We share the information in publications on our website and on social media. And we also work with building leaders and others to meet particular communications needs. Most of you are familiar with Jake Plank, who's the lead person in our creative department. He is responsible for graphic design, photography, video development, and production of the website, and also the new website, and also keeping the current website up to date. Kathy Edmondson, as I mentioned, heads up community engagement, and she does outreach, family engagement, parent university program. She also gets feedback from people about district initiatives and manages all our community outreach efforts across the school district. She has a team that she supervises. So although the duties in the plan are very specific, there's still a fair amount of crossover, and we're always pitching in and helping each other and doing each other's jobs, or pieces of each other's jobs, which is great. Next slide, please. District-level communications. This is basically the information that we, in partnership with various departments and schools, create and distribute to a wide audience. It includes, as I mentioned in the last presentation, the quarterly newsletter, capital education, school district calendar, postcards, course books, etc. It also includes digital communications, social media, SNN, Facebook, Twitter, and all things website related. And in fact, Facebook is our most popular form of communication. We have over 5,600 followers. We also work with media in the Albany area. Are they still here? Yes, they are. Okay. We have a TV station here. Sorry, I lost my train of thought when I looked around. We pitch stories to the media, and they contact us for stories. And sometimes we forget that good relations with the media are really important, because they are helpful to our overall communications goals, and they are our friends in many cases. They're rooting for us as well. Often the areas overlap. Sometimes we'll invite the media when we distribute. Sometimes we'll be inviting the media. For example, we'll be inviting the media when we distribute coats to students through the Coats for Kids initiative. That is something that we work with the City of Albany and with lodges and the Palace Theater and others in the community. So that's just an example of how everything overlaps. We also advertise on CDTA buses and shelters, which I'm sure you've seen those large buses driving through Albany, and on jams and KISS radio stations and the Spectrum. And this is very focused advertising that's basically for our community. At the school level, an important part of this year's plan involves supporting schools and departments in putting out clear and consistent and timely publications, newsletters, flyers, letters home to families, and help with issues on social media and any other things that they might have, questions they might happen to have. We're also, as I mentioned, working with schools to produce their own newsletters, quarterly at minimum, monthly for several of them, some interim and report card time, so it varies between the schools. We're also very excited that we're providing color photocopies of the newsletters to schools, which the schools love, just being able to have these really sharp-looking, colorful things to hand out to families that contain a lot of great information. We're also encouraging schools to use SNN at least once a week, and we've provided schools with a step-by-step guide on how to use it, and that guide is in Appendix B of the plan. And we're happy to see SNN use among schools is increasing, and as I mentioned, our Facebook and Twitter profile grows weekly. And we encourage schools and to use these tools regularly, and they're great ways to communicate. And as you know, technology kind of grows at a pace faster than a lot of things, and we'll be working to harness those new technologies as they come across and they come about. Next slide. Oh, that was school level communications. Oh, sorry, that's the same thing, sorry. The full newsletter is in process now, and that's going to include a new publication. I think the superintendent may have referred to it. I'm not sure if he referred to it before. The Family and Community Communications Guide. This is a one-page flyer, and it's Appendix D of the plan. That's a great tool for families and community members, because I know as a parent in the school district and hearing from other people, sometimes you just don't know who to call when there's an issue. And this tells you who to call, very simply, first step, second step, third step. And that's going to be an attachment to the newsletter coming out, so look for the guide when you get the newsletter. In some, there's a lot of ways to stay connected to our schools and our district. Call us. Visit our website, albanyschools.org, and use the feedback form. Email us. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. sign up to get SNNs. I think we're up to 29 categories, and you can sign up for all of them if you'd like. Also, attend a parent university or visit one of the tables that we have at, 30 events around the community during the year. And I guess that is a snapshot of the communications plan. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mrs. Adams.
And so I'd like to add just a little bit with regard to some of the logistics that are within the larger document. The protocols with regard to contacting the media and submitting articles, that's included. Schools know that if they are contacted by the media, that they need to make sure that they contact the communications office. Same thing with my office. If we are contacted directly, those are part of the directions that are included within that communications plan, so that we ensure that consistent messaging. Also, if any one of us are contacted by the media, we know that we go through the communications office, and those protocols are explained. When submitting articles, if there's any type of response to a media inquiry, be it written or oral, it goes through our communications department, and so there are guidelines with regard to that. The school expectations, we worked with Lori McKenna and Dr. Cecily Wilson-Turner, with regard to laying out those clear expectations with regard to newsletters. We know that we're not completely there yet because we are doing that follow-up from last year, looking at how many newsletters were printed and distributed per school, and some didn't quite make it to 4, but this year we're starting the year out again that we're looking at a minimum of 4. And then there are other documents that we have made a consistent template with regard to flyers, and it goes back to that messaging and marketing of our district. So schools have flyers that they have templates, and with the templates, all the main categories are right there for them, so all they have to do is fill it in. That ensures that we are making sure that they're putting the right information, the accurate information on the flyer. It's in a format that parents can easily recognize, so that even if they don't quite see it, so if you put it on the wall or you put it on the refrigerator or a bulletin board at your home, you just know from a distance that's something from the school district because of that signature look that we are embedding in the information that we're disseminating. And so we do have step-by-step how they need to complete those flyers. As you know, we are trying to move where even though we live in a technological age and we would like for people to sign up for SNN, we still would like to make sure that mailers go home in the backpack. We don't make it all the time, but we are absolutely vigilant and making that a part of the expectation that when we have an SNN, that there is a flyer that goes home with it, because everyone does not have access to the technology. So we want to make sure that we're still trying to keep parents informed that way. The family and communication guide, we have worked through that with board input, with cabinet input. Again, some of that information may need to change as responsibilities change. We tried to make sure that it was done in a way that was consistent with the responsibilities and the titles versus the names of individuals. However, on the back of that document, we will have the actual directory so that when you flip it over, you'll see the names and phone numbers of those people that you would need to call. And lastly, the parent university, looking at how we can grow that particular venue and that particular communications piece, so that looking at where our families are and how do we maximize our parent university to go where our parents are versus always trying to make them come to us. So looking at different ways of delivering parent university so that it can be, the potential of that can be maximized. So thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. Who would like to go first? Yeah, you went first last time. Do you want to go first again? You did. Okay. Ms. Roach, would you like to go first?
I just wanted to start out and thank you for the presentation. It gave us a lot of information that I and the board hadn't had and answered a lot of my questions. I think I had a couple of just quick comments and questions about logistics. One of the strengths of this plan to me was the media relations plan, and I had been wondering how that information, whether that information had been like kind of pushed out to building leaders specifically for Cecily and Lori, or put out to teachers or whatever, to make sure that there was a push for every building leader to know the protocol in that case? Or is that something that's going to be done?
So a little bit of both. We have shared it with principals at principals meetings, our monthly meetings that we have. It will also be reiterated because at each of those meetings, all of the division leads will have time on the agenda to give basic announcements, procedural updates, and reminders, as well as through principal check-ins. Ms. McKenna and Dr. Wilson-Turner will be following up with principals.
And I really liked the specifics of some of the descriptions of what we're doing, like the 4 newsletters a year, these very specific, smart, measurable goals. But I didn't see them as much in terms of when you listed the communications goals for the year, there weren't specific things you were doing to achieve those communication goals, even though when you read through the rest of the document, you could say, oh, I see that those 4 newsletters are there to support family, parent, and community engagement. And I could see how, although you wouldn't want to make it a very long and repetitive document, it might make sense to kind of include those specific activities that are going to be part of each goal, right with the goals. The other thing that I thought was really, 2 more things. One other thing that I thought was very strong was those templates for memos, because I think with the newsletters and whatnot, you're increasing the workload for building principals, but with the templates, you're really kind of trying to make things easier for them, making things easier, smoother, easier for them to do a polished professional job and get the information they want to get out better. And I really loved that family and community communication guide, and wondered what our plans are for pushing that out to the public in terms of if you have a question, here's your flow chart.
Okay, so that flow chart will be in our newsletter. It will be available online. We will have hard copies available at the board meetings so that people can pick them up, grab and go type of things. I'd like to go back to address the goals. One of the things that Mr. Lesko and I talked about with regard to this baseline year, because this is the first year that we're really having a comprehensive document, we stuck with yes or no items for the goal. Either you're going to do it or you're not. Either we did it or we're not in terms of the communications department. And then we will establish those measurable pieces and try to develop some type of matrix as we move forward for the 1920 school year.
Thanks.
Ms. Smith.
Ellen, thank you, because I had a couple of those same questions. So I just wanted to limit my comments to the communication guide for family and community. Really, really love that. In fact, so much so that I was trying to figure out, man, how could that become a magnet? Jake? The other, there we go. The other, yeah, it's a great refrigerator magnet, right? The other thing that I just wanted to ask is, and I just don't remember whether we include this kind of thing in the calendar, but could I also suggest that might be a good place to include this information?
Ms. Wilson.
Thank you for your presentation, and Lisa, I know you were pitching in today, so I think you did an excellent job. Thank you. Superintendent, you answered one of my questions about the balancing the school culture and the messaging, so I understand now there's, of course, a template and there's going to be consistency. Question I had was about, just one pre-question. You mentioned backpacking items with the SNN, and I was curious, and if I understand everything has a cost element, but I was curious if an SNN was generated and it was going to be something of a differing degree of making sure people had to understand whether it could be a system generated mail, which I understand there's cost, so I understand if that's no. But the other question I had was the flow chart I love also, to Vicky's point, and the who, and I think it also talks about, speaks to a social determinant in children's life, which is their parent involvement, and the parent understanding not only who, but when there's a what and when and why, how to navigate that. So I think that's excellent. And I think also parceling that information out in little pieces about the academic aspect would be helpful. So maybe not necessarily a chart about the entire academic, so it wouldn't be like overwhelming, but maybe like pushing things out slowly but surely about things of that nature. And another question I had, which is outside of parents, maybe the larger community, is the things we're up to in reality today versus things we're no longer doing or never have done, our capacity to sort of drill down and push down messages, because we talk about it at a high level at board meetings and then another level in the school, but then in the community it's a different conversation. So I was curious how you would confront or combat our real message versus what may become, you know, something discussed on social media or amongst people. And I was curious if you had any sort of preliminary thoughts about that.
Well, that's certainly a challenge, and it's something we confront every day, the perception versus the reality. And what we try and do is just when it's brought to our attention, and we encourage people to bring it to our attention, deal with it head on and provide people with facts. And again, it's part of that whole being honest and transparent and building trust in the community so they will believe us when they hear what we have to say.
Not so much like in terms of specific things, but I think you guys are already up to this with the branding and like sort of being sort of omnipotent, if you will. Like, so I hear things on the radio and I see things, and I think it really does promote our message. So I'm just more so stating that that's like a way to combat that, and I think you're doing a good job.
Anyone else? Ms. Lang?
For the Family and Community Communication Guide, was athletics omitted for, or it's not on there? When I look down, it doesn't have athletics. Does it?
I'm not. On the family and community guide, we really stuck with trying to make it very simple that things that are related to the school, that they would just contact either the teacher. In that case, we could even add coach, but it would stay at the school. So we wanted to try and keep school-related pieces at the local level. I know that might be different from information that might come to a board member, because with a board member it may be a little bit different, it may be more organizational, and so that might be a different route, but we could look to separate that out. It's not a problem. We could easily add another line.
I just think as a parent, if I had a sports kid or wanted to sign them up, I would look here and say, oh, athletics, and I would just notice it's not there, and then I wouldn't know where to go.
We can absolutely,
I was trying to think of another department too, that was like athletics, and I couldn't really think of one other than, I thought of school safety, I thought of special ed, but I understand that athletics is different.
We will go ahead and add that line.
Add a second, or do you want and my other questions were regarding translation. How is translation and the communications department working for all of our various languages?
So it will be translated into different languages, and so it'll be disseminated. Do you want
The translation process it's a work in progress, because it's a challenge sometimes from a printing point of view, from printing something to get the fonts to match up and everything. But we do our best in district publications to get everything translated. And we're working with the schools to encourage them to work with Tom Giglio's department to get publications of, not every publication, we just can't get every publication translated, but publications that are relevant to the entire school community. We're working with them and encouraging them to get those translated into the top 5 languages.
And are there, is there
I
guess I'm looking for like
apologize.
a guide or some kind, so that how do you disseminate what you use and what principals have?
I apologize, I misunderstood the question.
And just to be more specific, it'll be posted online. We'll have it in hard copy. So the traditional ways of, in different languages where you can click on it, we would be able to have that for that communications guide.
But you're asking for an enhancement to the communications plan, for it to include a section on how the translation process works, how we decide what to translate, how we decide what not to translate, what the process, like all. As part of the plan. Yeah, literally in the plan, so that
I
it's
guess,
more
like, is there a
transparent about
rubrics
that
for when you
decision-making
translate,
process.
what you decide to translate? How do you translate?
Who is next? Dr. Chador.
So communication is the key to everything, right? And so I like the strides we're making in the right direction. With respect to the schools having templates that are standardized, so the same information that is important is going out through all these flyers. I would like that to happen with the SNNs too, if it's possible, because for parents who have kids in multiple schools, and for some of us when we are signed up to all SNNs, and you get an SNN that doesn't say which school it pertains to, then you got to read through the mail, and sometimes even after reading through it, you really can't get it unless the location is maintained. So those things can be eased by putting those templates out. And I piggyback on the athletics that Ms. Lance talked about, because our kids are doing amazing things in so many different sports, and it'd be great for a community to find out, hey, this is happening here. There's a race going on. Can you go support our team? Soccer's happening in Niskayuna. Hey, I may be working in that region and I might want to go and watch it. So having that information as to what's happening where, if you could put that up, that'll only help promote more support for what our kids do.
Anyone else? I have a couple, and then, go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say that it's been a particular focus of the communications office to try and encourage the SNNs, each school to use SNN frequently. And some schools are better at it than others, and it's a learning process and a comfort level, getting everybody to a comfort level of putting that stuff out there. And we are working on that, and I completely agree with you that we'd like to be able to use it more.
So I'm going to do one. I don't know if anybody did that. Okay. So first of all, I wanted to recognize again the growth of the department, and in sense of the departmental mission has grown dramatically over the last couple of years. I think in terms of its influence on school level communication and the use of our communications resources and staff to support our building leaders in doing that, it's very much appreciated and definitely noticeable at the school level. You can see the professionalism of the communication is at the school level is growing dramatically, and I can see the influence of the communications department there, and so we thank you for that. I wanted to bring out two things that I've noticed as sort of underutilized opportunities. One is the mailed home report cards at secondary level. I receive a piece of mail that I always open as a parent 8 times a year from my school. There's nothing in there but the report card. It is an incredible opportunity. Every parent opens that envelope 8 times a year. So a little trifold flyer will be inexpensive. Whatever our hot message is, you put that in, have it folded in with a report card, and you would get, all the secondary families would see it immediately. The second thing that I don't really fundamentally understand how it works, and maybe you can help me understand, is the overlap between the various SNNs, especially for our younger families. They really only sign up for their school SNN. That's what they sign up for. Oh, look, I go to Eagle Point, check. Right, but they don't sign up for district, they don't sign up for athletics, they don't sign up for anything else. And so I don't really understand if we are trying to get our message out, meaning we, the district, under what circumstances do we send it to all the schools rather than just to the district? Because if we're doing just the district, you're only getting people who have checked the district box. So I don't understand that.
When there are circumstances that affect all our students, we will send an all-district mail. The way that School News Notifier is set up is if you're going to send, you can't click, if you want to send something to 4 different schools, you have to send 4 different emails. So it's not a very practical or workable system in terms of distributing mass mailing. So we try not to bombard people with we do have the capability to send them to all users, but we don't want to overload people with information that's not relevant to them. We don't want to send something about Hackett Middle School to you if you have a child at Myers Middle School, because why would that be relevant to you? And we're conscious of not wanting to oversaturate people with emails too, because most people's email inboxes are crazily overpopulated.
Is there an override?
But just for the one that comes to mind is please be sure to vote on budget day. That seems like one that I would want to go to all users, right?
Yeah, that would be something we would send to all users.
Okay, and so your choice is really, the way you've chosen to use the tool, it's everybody or the specific list, so, is that right? So,
Is the question, just for clarification, especially on my part, we're talking about, is there an override feature that if there's district-wide information that whether a parent signed up, so let's say that I only signed up for my school, but yet there's district-wide information that I need to receive, is there kind of an override button that ensures that I get that message even if I didn't sign up for all district?
No, because the all district, there are, I think, 29 categories, and when we send emails, there's a list of those 29 categories, and there's one of the categories that you don't see as a person signing up is all information. So we have the capability to send to all people, even if they didn't sign up for all categories. So if you sign up for one, and we send it to the all people category, you'll receive it.
right, I understand now, thank you. Anybody else have a first, and then I think Jen had a second? Jen?
I want to echo what Ann said. I mean, the communication is you've doubled since I've been on the board, so I want to say thank you for the communication and where you've going. Everything has been so great, and I think that what most of us hear the most is at the building level, is at the family level. And so thank you for, cutting that down. And I was wondering if, we know that families really need 3 hits of information so that it retains, whether or not it's a flyer, or somebody tells you, it's social media, it's Facebook. What are the rubrics and what are some of the creative things, and you don't have to be so specific, but overall that is having the conversations with the buildings and the principals to understand how proactive communication is and what they're going to get out of it, or how they're going to know the communication is being successful or they're hitting their right targets. They're having an introduction letter, welcome to school, my name is Principal so-and-so, here's our new teachers, please come to our school, we're so excited you're here, type, to an end letter, farewell, have a great summer, all of these things. And I think that's some of the goodwill that is missing from even understanding why that's so important, because there's so many things to do and we understand that. So really the school-based communication is what I'm looking for.
So we do address that at the principals meeting, talking about the importance of communication. Our supervisors do follow up with that with regard to their schools. I will say that we are still in the process of getting people used to that level of communication. Because it is ramping things up a little bit more in terms of the communication. Many of our schools, depending on the staffing, they have limited people that can help them with regard to doing that work. We know that our communications division is very helpful in that all schools have to do is get the information to them. They will format it, they'll make it beautiful and send it out. But it's also in shifting a practice, which takes time. Not a long time, because as you can see from the numbers, we have increased from 16-17 to 17-18. We look for an increase this year as well. So it is an ongoing, I don't want to say professional development, but it's an ongoing reminder to our buildings of the importance of communication.
Anyone else?
I'd also like to, first of all, thank the board for approving the positions that subsequently allowed us to be able to do more. For a long time, it was just me and Ron, and we were scrambling. And even with an office of 4, we were still scrambling. And just having an extra person on deck to be able to divide up the schools and to be able to think strategically about things instead of, scrambling to just hit everything at once is really, it's great. And we're thrilled that we're going to be able to approach it in a more systematic way.
Terrific. Thank you very, very much for an excellent report. We are grateful to finally have a written communications plan. Next item on our agenda is board committee reports. Do we have any board committee reports since 2 weeks ago? Oh, Ms. Lang.
The Government Relations Committee met on Monday morning at 8 o'clock to finalize what our legislative agenda would be pertaining to our upcoming meetings with the governors education department as well as with our legislators, our senators, and our assembly members. We continue to advocate on the points that we continued, and as everyone knows, it takes 2 to 3 years to continue to advocate to get it to fruition. We're continuing to advocate for our pre-K funding to make sure that we are getting the reimbursements that we deserve from UPK to pre-K. We also are advocating, again, for the foundation aid to restore that to 100% for our foundation aid funding. We will continue to advocate for community funds. We also are updating our community funds to show all of the great things that our schools, our community schools are doing, the implementation, the hiring, and getting out into our community and how that has had a effect on our schools in a positive way. We'll continue to talk about our ENL and update the governor with our international program and the success and grow upon that. We will continue to advocate on STEM, which was a new one that the Superintendent Adams brought to us to say how important STEM is for our students, the funding that goes with that, but learning hands-on, wanting our children to come to school. Our new one this year that we are advocating for is transportation. And as everyone knows, the 1.4 funding is much different than the 1.5 mile funding and reimbursements. So we're looking at community funding streams. We are looking for child safety zone criteria definition to make sure that the criteria is not just for suburban schools or rural districts, but it also applies to the safety of our children in urban districts. And those are things that we're working on. We do have a meeting scheduled with the governor's staff on the 13th, which is confirmed, so we will be able to have those conversations to make sure that we get the money and also just get the awareness of the good things that the Albany School District is doing.
Thank you, Ms. Lang. Ms. Smith, you had an announcement.
I just wanted to share with everyone that the Facilities Committee has its 2 next meetings scheduled, and that's November 6th and December 4th at 5:30 at Academy Park. So I'm just letting the public know and the board know as well. One other piece I think it's okay to share is that since at the last meeting we had a presentation that was focused on our workforce development around the Albany High rebuild. And we have since that time developed and put together a brochure that is, I think it's in the print, am I correct? Jake tells me that. And so shortly we'll be distributing those brochures out to community, and I think that will go a long way to help, again, explain where we are, where we want to be around the workforce development. And so I want to just thank the staff and the committee and Mr. Jake there for the brochure. It's quite nice. Thank you.
Any other committee reports? Thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay, that brings us to other business. Do we have any items of other business tonight? I'm just going to add one, which is enhancing on what the superintendent said. The 7 of us and the communications department and the superintendent were all at the New York State School Boards Association annual conference in New York City this past weekend. This is the Professional Trade Association for School Boards. It is, recall, your volunteer school board, unpaid time, spending the weekend learning how to be better school board members. And we always learn something new that we can bring back here. And I know many of us came back with ideas that we're already talking about among each other and with the superintendent about ways that we can be more effective as a board, establishing the direction for the district and providing good governance techniques. So I think it was overall a good conference. Does anybody have anything in particular that they felt that they wanted to share here?
Did you want to go first? Goodness. Again, it was really quite nice to be there together, all 7 of us, and covering a lot of territory with the various sessions that were going on. And also to have our staff there, our superintendent, and there were a few others from the district staff. It was really nice to be there as a team. And I think it made us think how much more powerful we might be out there in the not only the legislative world, but in the school business. And so that caused many of us to think more about how we could participate more in the School Boards Association activities. One, attending the area meetings that they have, as we have not typically attended those, maybe once or twice over the last couple of years. And that's where the school districts in the capital region get together, and they also put forth agendas and things like that. The other thing that a few of us were able to participate in was the caucus of New York State School Board members. I believe that's the correct name. I have it there in my bag. And that caucus now has a seat as a voting member to NYSBA, and so that's a very fantastic thing, and I think that happened last year. It was approved after a number of years of trying to make that happen. And so, I will say that Ms. Alexander Mann, Ms. Wilson, myself attended that, and really kind of felt like we wanted to come back to the board to say, you know what, we'd like to have the board consider our joining that caucus, becoming more active. It's very interesting that you don't see, I think Troy was the closest urban district involved in that session. The others were Long Island and, Western New York, and, but really not a body that seemed to reflect our district. And so I think we want to put that forth for your consideration, and I won't get too long-winded, but one of the other things that caucus does, which I think we also liked, is that they do give out a scholarship. It looked to be one a year right now, and it could go across the member districts. We want to be sure that our kids get one of those. So I sort of blurted out, hey, wouldn't it be nice that every district give out at least one scholarship? And if I had it my way, there'd be many more. But I think if we join, I think that it looked to me that caucus would consider that idea, that we would all be seeking, raising funds to deliver a scholarship to at least one youngster in our own community, in our own district. And so, those two things we want to come back and talk to you about. And then the final thing I just wanted to say is that, every session was very important. I was Mr. Hogan, I was there on one with facilities, understanding capital projects, and learned a few more things. So maybe I can help you out a little teeny bit. The CRE and equity pieces were just fabulous, and again, it's where I really had to kind of come to grips with what it meant to because this was being presented by the superintendent of a particular district and his leadership. So it was very, ground level, at the district and building level. So that's when I really sort of had to come back and think, oh, wait a minute, I've got to look at, that's important, because I can now see what a policy like this, the implications are and what it might look like. But in terms of my role as a board member, or our role, I really had to think about what does that mean in our context. So this was just a very incredible conference. I was sick from a lot of it, and did bag out of a few things just to kind of get a little rest. But I am really, really grateful to this board, and just incredibly honored of the work that we do, the volunteer work. And I sort of might have implied that we were doing this over a weekend, but actually it was during the weekday. It was just Saturday, it was half day, but it was really a work where we were taking time out from our work and also our families. But I believe it was our honor and our pleasure to do so on behalf of this incredible district and the kids that we serve. So thank you, and I look forward to sort of getting in there and doing a bit more work for our district on behalf. So go ahead.
Anyone else? Ms. Roach?
I think I would, again, keep amplifying what Vicky's saying, that I think this is our third year that some of our board members have been at the NYSBA conference, and we've kind of gone from being attendees to starting to think we should take more of a leadership role, whether that's really considering the resolutions that the NYSBA was considering passing and talking about we were talking about how we might, for example, as a board, talk about proposing our own resolutions for NYSBA next year. and Vicki and I both were presided over conference sessions, which isn't really a lot of content, but it's just kind of getting your name out there, being there, and kind of indicating that we want to take a more active role. I was really excited both by some of the ideas that I heard in the seminars, and also just kind of by looking at us, seeing where we are and how far we've come. I went to a great seminar on 0 to 5, and a lot of districts don't, even urban districts, don't have universal pre-K with no waiting. So we're doing some great things, and I really love the one-on-one discussions between board members about, at lunch, wow, what a great conference I was at. You won't believe what I heard. Just being able to bounce ideas off each other is both being able to absorb, both being exposed to so many new ideas and being able to bounce them off one another is extremely valuable. So thank you so much.
Ms. Lang.
I just want to say that some of the seminars that I went to were departments at the state, and as you know, Albany's capital is in Albany. And when I would say that I'm from Albany, if I'd have a question afterwards to talk about some of the things like legislation, raise the age, how that's impacting us, a lot of the people who worked for the department would name our administrators and staff by name and say, oh yes, I do work with Karen Bechdahl, or I know Lori. And so it was really nice to make that connection and really try to know that we should be taking advantage of our location, that we are right next door, literally, or across the street from the Capitol, because we do have those working relationships. So it was nice to hear some of the names in our district and knowing that them knowing the hard work and the work that we're doing as a district.
Ms. Wilson.
Just to summarize something that more or less everyone alluded to is that some of the things that we sat on and being in the presence of our peers we're actively working on. For example, we just spoke about equity this evening, and I sat in a session on that. But it was interesting that we are embarking, or sort of in our evolution of that process, and seeing a district report out on the gains that they've made and the actual results that is generated is just like almost like having an eye towards the future. Similarly, sitting in on culturally relevant education practices as it relates to project-based learning, both our initiatives. So it's just very fulfilling that we're already halfway there, or already in progress of doing such things.
Dr. Chatoor.
So Thursday was sitting in listening to lawyers talk about school law. Oh boy, how joyous and fun that was. But there are a lot of changes coming through the pipeline, and some are mandated, some are better interpretations of the laws that have been there. So it was a very interesting, eye-opening experience. It was a learning opportunity for sure. Other talks that I went to were, things like the tax levy, property tax, how those calculations work. And even with those explanations, it's really complex. So, Bill, I really appreciate the guidance you give us for what, when we make those things closer towards budget. A lot of the fun things that are, closer to what I do, was going to the STEM talks. And one of the talks that I went to was where this teacher, a science teacher from one of the school districts near Syracuse, was talking about this new science standards that are coming down the pipeline. And they are closer to what the feds are the federal standards. And she explained how these standards work. And I think we are going in the right direction. Because rather than, she talked about examples of how this will be interpreted. The kids are getting the same concept at first grade, fifth grade, eighth grade, 10th grade. So it's the same concept. You're just adding more information. So you're making sure they understand the stuff rather than memorize something by rote and spit it out at some test. So I think we're going in the right direction. And related to that, there were some other school districts that had worked with the local BOCES and in terms of STEM education for their teachers, because a lot of teachers have graduated a long time ago, and especially in the elementary schools, they're teaching everything in one classroom. They're not experts at one thing or the other, right? So providing them the right resources and enabling them to be able to teach these scientific concepts. So that was interesting. So that's, I think, we could have bigger discussions on that at a later date. And then there were talks on data-driven instruction, and I'm sitting in this thing, and I can see heads nodding, and I'm just like, hey, this is what we talked about last year, thanks to Mr. Baker. We're already doing some of those things. So, our district is in the right direction. We're making the right trajectories, and from what we've seen from the superintendent's report, I mean, the schools are making progress. Change is actually achieving what it's supposed to achieve in our district. So that's what I want to report from NISBA.
Anyone else? Are there any other items of other business? Then I need to entertain a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing matters leading to the removal of a particular person, a matter that will imperil the public safety if disclosed, and the proposed acquisition of real estate. Do I have a motion? Ms. Smith, do I have a second? Ms. Alexander Mann, all in favor? So I will let the members of the public know we will not be returning to the public session after executive session. You will not miss anything if you go home now.